Hi, you guys. So we're going to make cream and mushroom soup today. And here's what I want you to think about soups, because sometimes I think people think cream mushroom soup, it's kind of a throwaway item, kind of a fancy thing. I don't know what you think about it. But these kind of cream of vegetable soups or light soups, as opposed to hearty soups with beans and meat, these can play a really great role in your diet, especially for your blood sugar. And I'll tell you why. These kind of soups are good for your blood sugar in two big ways. One, starting your meal with something like cream mushroom soup, cream of broccoli, cream of tomato, even a French onion soup, cream of cauliflower. Oh, we can discuss all the kinds of cream. That slows gastric emptying. So even just a little cup of soup, like I'll often serve soup in like just one ladle full of it in a bowl like this to start a meal. And that slows gastric emptying, therefore blunting the glucose spike of the meal that you have right after it. Because it has, anyway, it does. It's great for it. The other thing it's great for, it seems a little more indirect, but it has a definite effect, is it improves your gut health. And that's because we're going to use bone broth with some collagen in it. And there's fiber in it. You see all these vegetables. I've got leeks or onions. Excellent fermentable fiber to support your microbiome. I'm going to put a bunch of carrots and celery, some garlic. And in this one, I'm going to put a bunch of mushrooms in it. But this could be cauliflower or celery or a whole bunch of different vegetables. Improved gut health reduces inflammation, and the healthy, diverse microbiome helps you digest your food and gives off all the anti-inflammatory awesomeness, to be technical about it, that you need. And that reduced inflammation does help your blood sugar. So, but we all know we're just making this because we love cream and mushroom soup. All right, so I'm going to start with the usual, some leeks. Now, I know a lot of you are like, I don't use leeks. They might seem a little, exotic to you. I happen to love leeks, but anytime I use leeks, you can so easily use onions. But I love leeks. And because this is going to be a cream soup, I don't have to worry about my knife skills. I don't have to worry about chopping things up really small. So I'm going to do really rough cuts of all of this. I just want to get a bunch of vegetables in this. Now, I want to tell you also how I use these soups. And unlike onions, leeks are tender and they cook more quickly. So I tend to put, like if this is an onion, I always tell people, put your onion in and let it soften for a few minutes with some salt before I put the other vegetables in, because the onion takes a little longer. But the leek, not so much. The leek, it takes about as much time as your celery and carrots. So I put a little salt on that. I'm letting them cook while I cut up everything else. My carrots. My typical time that I make soups is, especially cream of insert the vegetable soup, is before I go shopping, when I realize that I have bought a bunch of vegetables with the best intentions of cooking with them, and I didn't. And now they're getting a little less than awesome in my fridge. That's not the case today, but that's usually what I do, so I can use them up. So, onion, carrot, celery. Onion, carrot, celery. Hey, Shannon. Onion, carrot, celery. That is the base of all of my soups. So if someone says, I'm not eating enough vegetables, or people tell me they don't like vegetables, fine. You don't like vegetables. This is actually a great way to get vegetables, and it doesn't feel so vegetable-y. Because I'm going to cook these down with some cream. Who doesn't love that? And some broth and herbs, and blend them so you're not eating the vegetables, you're eating a really flavorful soup. Yeah? This is also great for people who their teeth are a bit difficult. As you get older, teeth get more painful. It's also good for people who have poor digestion. Yeah, some people's digestion just, it's just not as good as it could be. And vegetables make them really bloated, and they feel like the vegetables just come out the other end practically intact. I can give you other advice for that, but cooking your vegetables makes a big difference, and putting them in soups like this, it's a real winner for them. So when I'm making any of my cream soups, this is the start for all of them, except for tomato soup. Tomato soup, I don't put carrots and celery in, it ruins it. It's just onions and garlic and tomatoes, but that's another video. Otherwise, if I have, like, I've got a whole head of cauliflower in there. I might end up doing this with cauliflower over the weekend because I don't know if I'm going to actually get to that. That's another one of those, oh, I think I'm going to eat cauliflower this week. We usually end up eating cauliflower, either roasted, but even when I roast cauliflower with broccoli and carrots and all the other things, I find there's not a lot of uptake on the cauliflower from the roasting pan. So that roasted cauliflower ends up going in the fridge, and then I end up throwing it in. I would like throw a whole bunch of roasted cauliflower in here right now, right? Blend that up, and then it would become cream of cauliflower soup, even though it had all this onions, carrots, and celery. So no matter what I'm doing now, you can apply this if you're one of those anti-mushroom people. So we can't be friends, but I have one of those people in my family right now. She'll come around. I know she will, just not this year. I'm just peeling garlic. So this is a couple ways I like to use my cream soups in, like, my diet. One, like I said, you can serve it as a first course, and not as like a fancy first course. Just put it on the table first for hungry people. One thing you might not have thought of is, you know, your afternoon snack, or like when your kids get home from school and everybody kind of is going to have a snack and touch base, and your kids are ravenous and tired and whatever. Soup with toast is great. Like it's awesome. This kind of soup, like a cream mushroom soup with a piece of buttered toast for your kids after school, is awesome on a cold day. Garlic, I'm not going to put the garlic in right yet, but I'll put it in soon. And no, I'm not going to cut it because I don't have to. All right. Cooking down. I'm going to put a little bit more salt on that. Every time I add another vegetable, I tend to put another couple of big 5-finger pinches of salt. So I like that soup in the middle of the day. I love it for breakfast, but it doesn't have a ton of protein in it. That's why I like it. And for my mushrooms, like, again, I'm going to puree this. So I'm just going to cut off the end, maybe, and just quarter these, because these are big mushrooms. I think I got these, I got these at Costco. So I went to, I did my semi-annual trip to Costco with my mom. Thanks, Mom. Because I needed to get tires. And so I decided to get food at Costco, too, and do, you know, a little Christmas shopping. And they had this humongous container of mushrooms. And so I thought, it's cream mushroom soup week. Now, let me tell you the secret. This is the secret of cream soups, is a lot of cream. That's it. If you want your cream soup to taste really, really, really good, besides putting enough salt in it, use a lot of cream. That's the secret. That's all there is to it. Now, one thing you might be wondering about, especially if you're gluten-free, is most cream soups are made with a roux. You know, where you'd cook your vegetables in fat. Hi, Renee. You cook your vegetables in fat and then add flour and cook the flour and then add your broth, and that thickens it. I don't, well, one, you can use a gluten-free flour for that, but I don't usually make a roux for any of these soups. You can get that thickening by adding a lot of vegetables, and that's what I go for. I'm adding a shit ton of mushrooms to this. And this is a small pan, and I might regret this, but I think there's so much water in all these vegetables. You can already see, this is already cooked down quite a bit because I put a lot of celery in there, which has so much water. So I want this soup for lunch today. Oh. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but all right, some of that has gone out of it. Now I'm going to put, and maybe we should have used a bigger pan. I don't know how you are, but my mom does this too. We always underestimate, we always underestimate how much soup we're making, and we always make too much soup, which is not a bad thing. It's just a bad thing when you don't, when you're in denial about how big of a pot you need for that. All right, there's my mushrooms. I'm putting my garlic in there. See, this just doesn't have to be a big deal. And I'm going to put some herbs in there now. I'm going to use herbs de Provence because that's, you guys know, I love that. It just sort of works for everything. You can put some, I like a little Italian seasoning in it now. And then at the end, when I finish this soup, I put a teaspoon of like pesto or some fresh basil. I'll show you what I have over here. So you guys know that in the summertime, I get all the basil that I can, and I blend it up in a food processor with olive oil and a little salt, and I put it in an ice cube tray, and then I have these little bricks of, not really pesto, but pureed basil. And I'm just thawing this out, and I'll use maybe a third of it in this recipe, and put the rest in a jelly jar, which is what I should have thought it out in to save dishes. And this, I use this flavoring at the end of my cream of mushroom soup, my minestrone soup. I put it at the end when I make spaghetti bolognese or any of my like spaghetti sauces. I use it with my cream of tomato soup. So I use this, must use these like 2 or 3 times a week. I am such a fan of fresh basil. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't be. So that's what I'm gonna flavor this. All right, keep cooking. Now let's talk about broth. I talk about broth in a lot of other videos, so let's talk about it here. I'm using some homemade chicken broth. You don't have to use homemade chicken broth. I have a shopping video, if I remember to, I'll link to it here, where I talk about my favorite, how I like to buy chicken broth. I think what I like to use is Pacific Foods bone broth, no salt. It's not that I'm not against salt. I use tons of salt. But for me and the way I cook, I don't like to have broth with salt because I like to add salt while I cook to help me break down my vegetables, right? And if I'm going to have broth with salt in it, then it throws off all my intuitive salting things. So that's why I like that Pacific Foods brand. I have a hard time finding it in the store. I order a case of it off Amazon a few times a year. Yeah. I often have homemade chicken broth. Whenever I buy a whole chicken and I cook it down, I have chicken broth, but I don't always have it. But this is the other thing I'm going to do, and you can do this with your homemade broth or your canned or box broth, is I'm going to add a little extra gelatin to this. So I'm just pouring a little cold water, add cold water to a jar, and then I have a spoon out. Where'd it go? And I'm just going to take, there's my spoon. It's in the water, whatever. I'm going to put a couple of teaspoons of broth. And you can buy like Great Lakes kosher beef gelatin. That's a nice brand. You can get that off Amazon. I happen to have some Azure Market beef gelatin, 100% unflavored. This adds protein. I'm always adding protein to it. But it also, as Radiance likes to remind me, it gives it a really, hi Radiance, I was just talking about you. It gives it texture. Radiance, tell me what it gives it. What do you know the right word for it. But it gives it that smooth, silky, soupy flavor, texture. So, I'm not going to keep you on here forever because I'm going to be letting this cook for a while. So I'll tell you what the next steps are. I suppose I could be really savvy and like pause this. Umami. No, it doesn't give it umami. Umami is the flavor. That's not what collagen gives it. That's umami. We get it. It's something else. It's the velvety texture. Anyway, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cook these for a little bit longer. And then I'm going to add my liquid, but not my cream. It is texture too. I'm going to add my chicken broth, my extra gelatin, but I'm going to add enough liquid so I cover my vegetables, but only just cover my vegetables because remember I'm going to use the vegetable bulk to thicken this because I'm not relying on flour. Also, more vegetables, better for my microbiome. And I'll cook that until I'm ready, and as soon as my son's going to come home for lunch today, so Rowan and I both love Korean mushroom soup, so I thought I'd do something nice for him because he's doing a ton of driving for me this week. And as soon as he gets home, the vegetables will be cooked in the broth, and all I will do is I will add cream, and I'm short on cream, which is going to suck, but I'd probably add at least a cup of cream to this pot, at least, like, I'd add the better part of this pot of cream. I know, but it's so good. And then again, I'd add this pesto, and then I'd stick my immersion blender in there and blend it all up, and it's going to, hi Tina, hi Amy, and it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be so good. But that's it. You know, I would do the exact same thing. I don't know if you've seen my video on my cream of vegetable soup. My cream of vegetable soup is my take on the Still Life Cafe. Those of you from Seattle, if you remember the Still Life Cafe in Fremont, that's my old neighborhood, my old coffee shop. The woman who used to run it, she called it all-in soup. And she basically did this, but she also heaped potatoes, mushrooms, and then at the end, broccoli, cauliflower, some spinach or kale, and then topped it off with cream or not and blended it up. And so I use that as my either cream of vegetable soup or the soup of good intentions, because of all those good intentions with the vegetables you add. Amy, you feel like you're watching a Food Network show. Oh, yeah. So literally, you can do this with the other vegetables in there. Broccoli and mushroom with basil and cream happens to be a really great flavor. Oh, I just thought of something. I don't know if you like broccoli cheese soup, like broccoli cheddar. I think that is an awesome, awesome soup. And you can make that exactly the same way. I always kind of, my kids say I kind of nutrify things. And I don't ruin them. I like to think I make them halfway between something really healthy and something that's it's kind of a comforty food. I would do this, and I would make a cream of broccoli and I would cook broccoli stems in it. And then at the end, I'd finish it with broccoli florets until they were just cooked. Put a few mushrooms in there, maybe or maybe not. And then I'd add cream, and you could put cheese in there too. I often make that when I make fondue. If I have a fondue meal, I'll try to make enough so I have leftover fondue cheese and leftover broccoli, because I dip broccoli in fondue. And then I make that into a broccoli cheddar soup, and you're making broccoli cheese soup tonight, Radiance? Love it. Maybe you can share your recipe for that. Anyways, I just make a cream of vegetable soup once a week. This is super, super easy. Like, you can see how easy this is coming together. Things are mushing down. My mushrooms are getting soft. There's a lot of liquid in the pan, but I think now I'm going to add my liquid. So I talk, as usual, I talk long enough. And I'm going to add all my liquid. There's that. I'm going to add my gelatin. And then I need a little more liquid. And I boiled my kettle before. You don't have to add more hot water, but it just makes things faster. And I'm going to rinse out the rest of my broth. Let's see. So, like I said, I just want to put as little as possible. There. I'm going to show you this. Is this too hot? Yes. Let me show you my jar lids. See? So there's that big block of still frozen chicken broth in the middle. When that thaws out, I think it'll just cover the vegetables enough that they'll be able to cook. And at the end, I'll add my cream and my pesto or my basil and blend it up, and awesome sauce. So I'm going to cover this. I'm going to turn this up just a little. Set my timer for 5 minutes so I remember to come check it. And then I'm going to clean up my mess and go do some work. So thank you for watching. And look in your fridge. Look in your fridge, in that vegetable drawer, and look around and see if you have leek or onion. Onion is not in your vegetable drawer. Your onions are in a cool, dry place, but not in your fridge. Carrots and celery, and some other vegetable, broccoli, mushrooms, cauliflower, some kale. What else would you put in there? See if you have those kinds of things, and enough that, like you could fill a bowl with them. And they can be pre-cooked too. So if you roasted a bunch of broccoli and cauliflower and nobody ate it, or maybe you were really smart and roasted a whole bunch, knowing that you were going to make soup the next day, then you don't have to actually cook then. You could just get this all done and just throw in all your roasted vegetables at the end. My son saw. All right, so make some soup. Thanks for watching. Have a good week, you guys.